Are your pictures muddy, flat and uninteresting? Well, if we have a look at this one, for a start off, the composition isn't great because you've got your horizon right through the middle and you've not got a variety of colours. The same with this one, it's quite insipid, there's no real contrast of colours, there's not enough colour in there, and colours have been put on while other colours are still damp, and you've got bleeds. And if you were to actually photocopy them in black and white, there'd be hardly any contrast between the different greys. Can you see that? Now I'm going to have a go at this. Now I'm going to over egg the pudding, as you can see, it's very bright, but if we look at that, I've raised the horizon to the top third, which is a better composition. There's much more contrast of colour and depth of colour, and if we do that in black and white, you can see the difference. So I'm just going to go ahead and just demonstrate how I painted this. And I'm just going to wet the sky first of all. So as I mentioned, I'm using just a few basic colours, just my usual old favourites: ultramarine, cerulean blue, burnt sienna and cadmium yellow here. But it doesn't really matter about the colour, it's to do with the strength of colour and how you apply it. So I've raised the horizon, I've drawn a line here, very, very lightly. And now I'm just wetting the sky area, so we'll just concentrate on that first of all. So wet it thoroughly. I'm wetting slightly over that line because it doesn't really matter at the moment, but at least I know where my horizon is going to be. Okay, so just speed that up a wee bit. And then I'm going to apply more of a honey colour for the clouds. Rather than just having the clouds white, let's add a little bit of interest and make them a little bit more creamy coloured. Not all clouds are just white. And then I'll start to add a few blues around that. Now be careful about actually allowing the two colours to mix, because you'll obviously get a bit of a green. It doesn't matter if it happens a little bit, but just try to bear that in mind, that you don't want green clouds really. So I'm just going to just carefully apply the cerulean blue. I'm obviously not going to put a lot of colour in this bottom part here where the headland's going to go, but I'm just concentrating on the top area here, a little bit down at the bottom. I don't need to do an awful lot. And then I'm going to apply more of a navy blue. So I'm not just having one shade of blue, I'm having two, a slightly stronger one now. This is ultramarine and burnt sienna together. I'm putting a little bit under the clouds to make the clouds look like they're quite heavy and full of water. And you can tip your board so that the colours run a little bit, and just play around with that. As long as the paint's still wet and the paper's still wet, then you've got time. Okay, now I like to use these little mounts, these L shapes here, so then I can always sort of crop my pictures wherever I want them. So that's where we're up to, which is definitely, I think, an improvement to that at the moment. So after that, we're going to start the sea, and I'm going to wet the sea area here. Now I'm doing a very careful line now, just where the sea meets the sky, and then wet the rest of the sea area and start to put in my lighter blue. Spread that around a little bit and think about the way the waves would be, the direction of the waves lapping into the shore. And then I will start to apply some darker colour on top of this. So it gives you like the area. And then with the navy blue, very carefully drawing a darker line on the horizon, because I do think that the sea is one of the only things that gets darker the further away it goes. I'm not quite sure why. It's probably something to do with physics, I would think. And then just apply some darker waves. Think about waves rolling into the shore, the shapes of them. Leave lots of light areas. Think about the shape of the coastline. And just continue. Now I'm dropping in a little bit of green and brown, and so it's like the seaweed and bits of sand that it's mixing with as it gets closer to the shore. Okay. And then applying some darker waves in like the bottom, from half down really. Don't put too much in the background, keep that fairly, not as detailed, let's put it that way. Okay. So that's better than that sea. That sea is very boring, very flat, not much movement, no texture, no waves as such. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bit of a shoreline where the water line really, where it meets the sand. Okay, so I'm just going to put a brownish line in there and then soften the bottom edge and do that all the way along. Just soften it at the bottom. And then I want a little bit more water, as though the water's getting shallower and shallower as it meets the sand. So I'm just going to put a little bit of grey in this area here. And then I'm going to allow that to dry while we do the headland. Now normally I'd pick very, very cool colours for this, but I'm going to wet it first because it gives you time then to get your colours on, manipulate them without it drying and you're getting streaks. So as I was just saying, I usually would pick very cool colours, but I do want there to be a lighter green. So I've mixed a limey green, but put a little bit of brown in it to make it slightly more sagey. As the lighter area, can you see it's not really, really vivid lime green, and a lot of that is going to be covered up anyway, because things would go cooler the further away they go into the distance. So this is just like an undercoat, and then I'm going to put little hints of brown, but not much again, because I don't want too many warm colours. Then I'm going to go over the top with a very cool and quite a darkish green. This is slightly thicker, so that it will just sit where you put it, and it won't just mix into the other colours and create one new colour. You can see each individual colour there, and then that creates sort of the headlands and the cliffs, and I'm just going to do that all the way along where it meets the sea. Just keep it moving, still wet, it's not dried, and add in that very dark green. So you can see there's not an awful lot of that light green that you can actually see now. So it's okay to have some brighter, warmer colours in the distance, as long as it doesn't become too dominant, because it has got to be the background. Now I'm going to do the sand. I'm going to do two different shades here. I'm going to use the same sort of colour that I used in the clouds, and then I'm going to use some of the brown for darker areas and little bits of detail. So let's get this on first, and you can see I'm just creating like another little line where the water is lapping against the sand. You see, by putting that brown in, you can see where the water stops. And then with even darker, almost black, so like your blue and your brown together, you're creating like rocks, pebbles. Now I almost feel that I should have left it here, but as usual I've overworked it, so I apologise for that. But I thought, well, I'm not going to do the whole thing again, and it's good to show all the mistakes as well, and I think it would have been better to leave it there. But I actually wanted to put some rocks in to say that will also create tonal perspective if you have something very detailed in the foreground. So you've definitely got like a foreground, a middle ground and a background. So I am putting these rocks in, but to be honest, I sort of almost wish I hadn't, but there you go. I'll carry on with it. and I'm using a credit card here to get some little cracks and crevices. It's quite a nice technique. I do have a video on that in my playlist. If you look on YouTube, you'll find that. And then just a few grasses, and then in a minute I'm going to mix a bit of white gouache with the green so that I can actually have a few grasses over the darker area as well, and that will show up. So you can see I've done that there, so a little bit of green with that. And then add in a bit of pink to the white just to create some flowers, probably like sea thrift or something like that. So then you're creating a lot of interest, a lot of detail in the foreground, which gives the whole picture a tonal perspective. So there you can see how I've sort of altered that flat, muddy picture into something much cleaner. Okay. You see, it's better than that. That was very uninteresting. It's much brighter than that. That's not exactly muddy, but it's just uninteresting and flat. This one is quite muddy, not a real lot of contrast, whereas this one has got a lot of contrast, even though I do admit that it's been overworked. And probably I would go back and then maybe just take some of the detail out of the middle ground of the sand and maybe remove the rocks or something. But anyway, I hope that helps. So just bear in mind those few things when you're doing your next painting. So good luck and happy painting.